So this time I decided to make a step stool, and it's something that I actually needed in my garage for a while now. I actually made this one look pretty nice with the finish, and there's kind of a contrasting um, two-tone color. So I made this look pretty nice. I think I could actually get away with keeping this in my kitchen, and my wife wouldn't complain too much about that. Um, but anyways, I made this whole thing out of oak. I've got the two steps are made out of a solid oak, and for the stretchers and the sides, I used an oak plywood. And I did, as I said before, it is too tinted, so I used a red mahogany stain, and on the top I just used a boiled linseed oil. And for the joinery, I used pocket holes for that. And well, boy, if you're not familiar with pocket holes, you should be, because pocket holes are fantastic. In fact, I try to use them whenever I can. And I do go into that a little bit in the video. I show how I used it for this project. So anyways, check out my video of how I made this, and as always, you can check out my website at woodlogger.com, where I have more information about this project and other projects going on in my shop. So to get started on my step stool, I started off by cutting two pieces of plywood, and I actually used oak plywood because it's hardier, it's stronger, and for a step stool that's what you want. It's also a little heavier, which is kind of the downside. But anyways, I used oak plywood for mine, and I cut this 14 by 15 3/4. So I stuck to the plan with that. And then the other thing I did was I cut these stretchers. I actually cut 4 of them. Same width, the 14 across by 2 inches wide. And when I get ready to assemble these, I'm actually going to use pocket holes. I'm not going to follow the plan in this case for that, just because I think it's a little bit easier and it's a little bit stronger. But the stretchers are what will actually kind of hold the two pieces together. And so that's what that's for. And then the last thing I cut was I cut this again out of oak. This isn't plywood though, this is actual oak. And I cut a top step and a bottom step for these so that they would look a little something like that. Now, this will actually have a kind of a notch cut out, right, so that you got a step and a top step and a bottom step. So anyways, I'm going to start cutting that out right now, and I'm just going to use my jigsaw for that. So for the sides of my step stool, I've gone ahead and I marked my line. I'm coming in 7 inches from the side and 7 inches from the top, and then eventually the bottom step will go here and the top step will go here. I'm holding this down with some clamps onto my bench, and another thing I've done is I've attached kind of a guide for my jigsaw to follow so that I can rest up against there and make sure that I get a straight line. So I'm going to go and cut that out now. So next up, I've got my steps. I've got my top step and my bottom step. And what I wanted to do was just do a really slight round over on the front of the step. I think it'll just look a little bit nicer, and I mean, I guess technically it's a little safer, right? Because you're kind of cutting that sharp edge. The sides and the back I'm still going to leave flat, but I think I'll just use my router for that. And I'm just going to use a quarter inch round over bit for that. Really, it's kind of an optional step, but I think it just kind of adds to it. So one of the steps that I wanted to do next was to add edge banding. And if you've never used edge banding, they come in these sort of long strips, and you just cut them to the size that you need. And because plywood has the multiple layers, right, the edge banding hides that. I've got oak edge banding, but they come in all the different styles of wood and shade, different shades too. So I'm going to use that for here. And then all you have to do is, on one side there's glue. And so you hold it down, and if you had a heat gun, I guess maybe that would be ideal. I've always just used a blow dryer to heat it up. It forces the glue to melt, and then I go over it with this little tool and just kind of smooth it all out and make sure it's consistent and even. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to roll that again just to make sure that it's nice and consistent all the way down. The This edge banding that I have is actually a little old, so hopefully the glue. So then to get rid of it, as far as cleaning up the sides, because it does hang over the sides just a little bit. You can use just an X-Acto knife, which I've used many times. They also sell these little tools that are just for edge banding to trim them off. It just makes it a little bit easier. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to apply edge banding to the front of the step so that it covers that as well as the back of it. And then I'm also going to use it on one of the stretchers that I have that's connecting the two together. Anything that's on the bottom or that's kind of not exposed though, I won't waste my time with that because it's not going to be seen. So anyways, I'm going to finish that up right now. So for the joinery on the two sides that I've got these stretchers that I cut. They're about 14 inches in length and about 2 inches wide. And I made 4 of these. This is actually the top one, which you can see kind of the edge banding that I have going on there. I could use just a simple butt joint, just kind of go up right against the side and screw it in from the outside and just kind of plug it up so you don't see it. I've decided to actually use a Craig pocket hole system. And there's lots of pocket hole systems and jigs out there. I really like the Craig one. They've got it figured out. And if you don't have a pocket hole system, even be it Craig or some other system, you should look into it, really. It's one of those sort of top 5, top 10 kind of jigs slash tools that I use. And I should say when I can use pocket holes, I do use pocket holes. It just makes it so much simpler. So anyways, I'll use that for this. I'll use that on my stretchers. And then I've also got my two sides where my step's going to sit. I'm going to actually put pocket holes here and here. I haven't decided whether I'll do 2 or 3. I'll probably just do 2. Yeah, maybe 3. So here, 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 here. My steps will be together, and really I'm going to use a pocket hole system for this, for all of the joinery work for this whole thing. So as I said earlier, I'm going to use my Craig pocket hole jig for this. I've got the K4 system, and I think there actually is a K5 system out now, although I really don't know the advantages of that one, and whether it's kind of worth the upgrade. Craig does a fantastic job though on just about everything they make, so it probably is worth looking into. If I ever manage to get one of those, I'll have to do a review and let you guys know how and what I think of that. So anyways, I've anchored my stretcher into the back. I've secured that down. And there's actually a letter A and a B that's on the front. There's 3 different holes that I can choose from. I'm going to go with A and B because I think that's pretty squared out. Actually, I think I'm going to slide that over just a little bit. That should space it out. And that's pretty much it, right? You know, I've got 2 holes right here where I can put screws in, and then it'll meet my other board. So anyways, I'm going to repeat the same process over and over again for all of my stretchers, as well as the 2 sides that I've got. All right, so there it is. I've got all my pocket holes drilled now. I've got 3 for my bottom and 3 for my top step. I have all my stretchers completed. Now I just need to join these together. Okay, so I've got one of my stretchers and I'm going to attach, and you can see it's the unfinished side. That's going to go on the top step here. When I get to this back side, that's going to be more revealing. I'll use the edge band side for that. So for the pocket holes, it's pretty simple. You just go straight down into it. Normally I clamp these 2 up, but I think in this case I'm going to be okay. Well, I guess I'll find out here in a second. Yeah, and I think that worked out okay. So I've got, this is just 1 screw in my pocket hole that's holding that. And it turned out nicely. I just need to keep going and do the rest of my sides. Okay, so I've got one side of my stretchers attached, and I'm going to work on the other side, and hopefully this goes okay. Okay, well I've got all my stretchers attached to all my sides. Got my edge band piece here, which makes it look a little bit nicer. Next up, I just have to attach my steps. My bottom step, I'll have almost no hangover, maybe just an eighth of an inch. And really that was because I cut my board just a little bit shorter than I had kind of planned on doing. And then on my top step, but no one will ever know, so always remember that if you make a mistake. Top step will have a little bit more of an overhang, and it will look something like this when it's all said and done. So now I just need to flip my stool over and attach these with pocket holes as well. Okay, well I think I've got my step stool all done. I've got my top step, my bottom step, and boy, it's just solid. It feels, you know, it's a little heavy, but it feels rugged, like it's meant to hold up. So it's kind of cool. It's a very sturdy one. It's made out of oak, so I guess it should be a little heavy. Again, I used pocket holes for all of the joinery on it. I've got edge banding along the back side and this top here. And next up, I'm going to work on staining it and maybe putting a top coat of, I don't know, maybe poly. So I'm going to work on that next. So for the finish on my step stool, I decided on the 2 steps to use a product called boiled linseed oil, and you can find that at, you know, really any of the box stores. It's a pretty common thing to find, and if you've never used it before, it's a great product because it really makes the wood have kind of that natural look, but it also has a protective layer too. So anyways, I put a coat of that, and I may put a second coat on that. I haven't decided yet. For that, the more coats you put on it, the darker it gets, and I really want to have a contrast between the two. Although it is a step, so I keep thinking it's going to get abused a little bit, so I probably will put a second coat on there. For the sides and for the stretchers, I wanted to have a contrast, as I was saying a second ago, with the steps. So I decided to use a red mahogany stain that I'm going to apply all over that. One of the things I've done is I've sort of taped off the steps so that I don't get any of the stain accidentally on the steps. And I'm going to work on doing that now. So I'm pretty much done with my step stool now. I've got the baked linseed oil finish on the top steps. I've got the red mahogany on the side, and it makes a really pretty contrast on the wood. Right now I'm just applying a layer of polyurethane just as protection on the sides, and maybe on the steps on top as well. But anyways, this was a great project, and if you're looking for one that you can do that's fairly inexpensive and you can do in a few hours, maybe even on a weekend, this is a great project to check out. So as always, check out my website at woodlogger.com, where I'll have more detailed information about this project and other projects I have going on in my shop. And if you haven't hit subscribe yet on YouTube, be sure to do that too, so that you can stay up to date on future videos that I put out. See you next time.